I'm delighted today to be joined by Katherine Adams. Katherine, welcome and Kudos in construction.
Hello. Thanks for the invitation.
No problemo. Let's get straight into this. I'd like people watching to get to know a bit more about you. So could you explain how you ended up working within the construction industry? What's your background?
Yeah, sure. So it was a bit of an accident, really. Really, I never actually planned to go into construction. I went to uni. I did a degree in biology and geography. I dossed around for a bit, to tell the truth, after that. Then went and did a master's, again in sort of environmental auditing and impact assessment. And then it ended up in waste management, working at a university, but not really in construction. So more just looking at sort of best practice waste management for businesses and local authorities. And then my longtime colleague, who I still work with now, actually, at Gilly Hobbs, who was then at BRE, kind of saw me present there and headhunted me, I guess. So that's how I ended up in construction. But as soon as I started, I found it really fascinating. So it's been over 20 years now, and just on the construction waste angle, because that's very much where it was back then. You know, there was so much being produced, such an opportunity to do something about it, and not really that much work in it. So yeah, I kind of fell in love's quite a strong term, but no, I did sort of think, oh, there's something here on construction, and then you know, it's just really interesting as well, because it's not just construction, is it? It's working with a whole supply chain, understanding all those different issues, and waste is a really good way to look at it as well, because there's so many different materials that you're looking at as well. So it was sort of, yeah, really good from that perspective.
So you kind of fell into it, and like you said, that love's a strong word, but you certainly have a passion for it. And one thing in doing my research that came up with this phrase, resource efficiency, which I think is a far better phrase for the construction supply chain than waste management. Where does that passion come from? You know, you said you're quite passionate about it. Where does that come from?
So that's a good question. I've always, you know, I like to think myself as quite a bit of an environmentalist, and just before it was trendy, I guess. So, you know, when I was studying, you know, the issues were sort of very, very prevalent then. Just no one really listened to us. And then when we started a job as well, again, we were sort of, you know, talking about all these issues, but I guess the time just wasn't right for a lot of industry and government to take them seriously. So now it is. So it's really just, I know this sounds a bit sort of making a change, you know, that, you know, everyone probably says that, doesn't it? But yeah, I just think as a human population, we need to protect our planet. And we definitely do need to do that in the way we construct our buildings and live in them, and all the related infrastructure. We use so much resources, so anything that can be done to sort of, you know, reduce that or optimize that as much as possible has got to be a good thing.
Yeah. I always think when we talk about resources, I suppose away from construction, my first thought about how much we actually use and how much stuff we have is, I always think about New York, and I always think on a daily basis, you know, everything has to be cleaned, everything has to, you know, the rubbish has to be disposed of, it has to be collected, and that's just the rubbish that's on the street. And it kind of blows my mind that just in that tiny piece of the world, that small piece of the world, there's so much stuff that has to be done, and that's just that bit.
Yeah, and we're all guilty of it, aren't we? I mean, I'm looking around me. I've just got stuff from years and years. Do I actually need a lot of it? All that stuff has a cost, doesn't it, in terms of its production, and then when it goes into the waste stream, it also has to sort of be managed at that point as well. So yeah, I'm not sure, looking around me, I'm a perfect example of what I'm preaching, but I just think, if everyone's got a bit more, I think people's eyes are getting a bit more opened, aren't they? Especially when it comes to the whole stuff agenda and what stuff's made of and what happens to it.
And the thing you said about making a difference, and everybody says that, I think there's a huge difference and between those that say that and those that actually do, and that's why we're chatting today, because you talk about it, you do stuff about it, albeit, like you just said, not the perfect example right now, but yeah. Let's move on. Okay. I want to cover this thing called smart waste, which you helped develop. Can you explain what it is and how it came into existence?
Yeah, so smart waste. This is a product from BRE. It's still in existence, which is great. So it came about quite a few years ago now, and it's that whole sort of message. You have to measure something to be able to manage it. And what we were finding with construction waste, especially also demolition waste to some respects, is that there's a lot of it being produced, and there wasn't really much happening to be able to reduce that waste, or even back then recycle that waste. So what we decided to do was develop a tool which would help people really measure the amount of waste that they're producing. That doesn't sound that radical now, but sort of 20 years ago, it was really, because the whole idea is, it's very much a software-based tool, but the whole idea was to get sites and contractors to input data themselves on waste. So what the waste was, what the type is, what's happening with it, how much there was. But then I guess the really interesting part of it was then us to aggregate that data and be able to provide benchmarks in terms of how that waste is being being managed, and then really establish what is good and best practice, and from that then be able to set benchmarks to get people to move up. So I guess it had two benefits really. It really, it has helped contractors, companies being able to understand what their waste is, where to focus their efforts, but then it's also moved, I'd like to say it's moved the industry on as well, both in terms of sort of developing that key data set which feeds into schemes like BREEAM, but also development of policy. So I've been quite involved, well, in the past and now with government as well. So it's really providing that really important evidence piece, which can be lacking. And I think SmartWay, it's still in use. It's got loads and loads of data now, and that can only be a good thing in terms of making informed decisions.
You said it was developed some time ago. Are there any future plans with it, or is it just there and it'll keep generating?
I'm not really involved with it anymore, so it's in the trusted hands of BRE. But funnily enough, I was at a presentation the other day on it, and it's, I consider it as my sort of, one of my colleagues sort of introduced it. I then looked after it in its awkward teenage years, shall we say, and now and now I would say it's fully blossomed, if you like. So nice. It does much more than waste. It has done for a while actually. So it does all your different environmental impacts on site, and it does a lot more on carbon as well. So it's really sort of moving into the area as it would do, as it probably needs to as well.
Cool. That's great. Check it out. Kind of staying with the development or creation of certain things during your career, you co-authored, and I'm going to read this off the screen so I get it right. You co-authored Material Resource Efficiency in Construction in 2017, and that provided a framework for material resource efficiency. Just talk to us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, you know what? That was 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And I think that was, again, that was a BRE publication, and what we wanted to do was really just distill, a lot of knowledge. So 17 years of knowledge into one document, if that's possible or not.
Yeah.
yeah, so really just taking all that learning and looking at it at what you can do from your role within the supply chain to address resource efficiency. So that may be, you know, what can you do to reduce resources, prevent waste, recycle more, divert it for landfill. So, you know, so measurement forms part of that. What can you do procurement wise? What can you do technically? So bringing a whole load of information together on that, and hopefully providing it in a way that's accessible and not you know, not too scary for people to commit to. And I think that's important as well, because, you know, there's a lot, well, majority of construction is probably done by, you know, medium and smaller contractors, so it's important to be able to get that message out, isn't it, quite simply.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was 5 years ago, as you pointed out. It seems like yesterday. Have you seen much change in the industry since 2017 then? Now you have said it's 5 years ago.
Yes and no.
Okay.
If that makes sense. So
Yeah,
yes,
yeah, sure.
you know, there's been a huge move towards circular economy. You know, so I think it moved really from waste management to resource efficiency to circular economy. So, you know, so that's getting a lot of profile, which is a great thing. You know, recycling happens matter of course now. There's a lot more understanding of what does happen. But saying that, there's still a lot of work we can do. You know, there's still quite limited examples of circularity in construction. And then when it becomes to the waste agenda, we recycle a lot, but a lot of it's still downcycled, and we still produce a hell of a lot of waste. You know, waste is very much ingrained, unfortunately, into our processes. So yeah, that's why yes and no. I think the level of awareness is there. I think, and it's great to see the the younger generation. They're so passionate about these things. It really. So I think that will make a huge difference. But just got to get on with it, really.
Do you see in the industry now? Do you see like certain pockets of maybe the industry or certain organizations doing the right thing, or moving towards, like you say, circular economy and more being more mindful of the resources used and the efficiency in resource management and all those types of things? Do you find it's in different pockets and certain organizations, and the rest is they're not doing their part? That's kind of what I feel. I don't know if that's correct or not.
Yeah, I mean I mean you've got quite a lot of the commercial clients, the big players, developers that are definitely looking at it, and I think there's a key relationship with, you know, with carbon and embodied carbon, so that's really the key driver. And resource efficiency, circular economy, it, you know, aids that. And you know, contractors do their fair bit. I would say the larger contractors are doing a lot, and the manufacturers. I mean, manufacturers have been pretty resource efficient for quite a long time, largely because of, you know, the processes and viewing it as an inefficiency. It's quite interesting to know what resource, you know, the increasing resource prices, and if that will have, you know, more of a give people more of a dimension on or, you know, more ammunition for resource efficiency, whether that actually sort of plays out or not. But I still think it's very hard for SMEs and that sort of thing to really sort of address these issues, just in the way that, you know, the construction industry is set up. Really, it's quite difficult, and especially with dealing with waste.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so let's just move it along a little bit, or we're coming to the end. But what I want to move on is more what you're doing right now, and in the future. You've played your role in a lot of major projects, and like you said, processes, legislation, and all those elements during your career. But what are you working on at this moment?
So I've got various hats. which keeping me busy. So I've got my own company, Reusefully Limited, which I run with my colleague Gilly Hobbs. So we're both both from BRE originally. That's really providing a lot of sort of bespoke consultancy on circular economy and resource efficiency in construction. So that's great, really. Working with people that we know really want to make a difference to. Don't want to sound too corny on that. And then, so a recent project we've done is with the Green. I'm on the Green Construction Board, Resources and Waste Group. So we've done a really good piece of work, which is doing a zero avoidable waste route map in construction. Okay. Lots of actions across the supply chain, and that working with government as well. So that's a really nice piece of work. I also work with the Alliance for Sustainable Building Products. They're a great outfit. So that's just, you know, providing circular economy advice. We've got different projects starting on looking at packaging in construction, not looked at very much at all. So mainly on plastic. So that's quite an interesting one, just to find out a bit more what's happening. Steel reuse, reducing plastic. So that's, I really like that. That work can do lots of different things there. I also, on a voluntary basis, I'm an organizer of a circular economy 3 counties, covering Northamptonshire, Bedfordshire and Buckinghamshire. That's not just construction, that's all types. So that's just bringing individuals and businesses together to talk about the opportunities of circularity. That's really good as well, because you will find quite a lot happens in the big cities, but then trying to sort of replicate that in smaller cities and towns and regions. So that's really interesting as well.
Fantastic. I'm busy. Yeah, absolutely. You're that busy. Let's finish up here so you can get back to your various hats that you are currently wearing, metaphorically. Katherine, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Thank you.
That's okay. Thank you.